The marked ones, some places you don't belong, some invitations shouldn't accept. I learned that too late. I was never the type to get invited to big college parties. I wasn't in a frat, didn't have great grades, and mostly kept to myself. My weekends were usually spent in my dorm with my two best friends, Jason and Eric, drinking cheap beer and killing time. Some nights we wanted more, so when Eric told us about a house party through a girl he had been talking to, Vanessa, we jumped at the chance. She was the kind of girl that always left him waiting, always vague, always just out of reach. Maybe that should have been our first clue. Vanessa stopped responding to Eric a few hours before we left. That was odd. It wasn't enough to stop us. The house was farther than expected. GPS took us down winding roads where streetlights grew fewer and farther apart. Trees pressed close, their branches clawing over the road. I remember glancing at the gas station we passed. Dark, abandoned, its windows shattered. There was a payphone outside, its receiver dangling from the cord. Didn't shake the feeling that if we stopped there, we'd never leave. We reached the house, stood alone, separated from the rest of the neighborhood. 3 stories tall, almost too perfect, like something built for a movie set. All the windows were dark, except for the ones on the second floor, where a faint glow pulsed. A single note played in the distance, long, droning, like a cello being stretched too far. Jason hesitated. "Dude, are we sure about this?" Eric was already out of the car. From the moment we stepped in, something felt wrong. Most parties had a kind of chaos to them. Drunken laughter, music pounding through the walls, people spilling drinks and shouting over each other. This place was different. Everyone was too well dressed. Not casual party clothes, but suits, dresses, gloves. They stood in small groups, whispering among themselves. Every so often, someone would glance at us, just a flicker of a look before they turned away. The house itself was too clean. No empty cups, no mess, no signs of life. The air smelled faintly of something bitter, like old flowers and burnt wood. The music wasn't music at all. Slow, rhythmic pulse, almost like a heartbeat. Jason shifted uncomfortably. "Are we at the right place?" Eric grabbed a drink from the counter. "Relax, man. Free booze." But I wasn't so sure. I first noticed it on a woman's neck. A thin, dark green line, like ink drawn with surgical precision. Then I saw another, and another. The same mark, the same size, the same eerie shade of green. And then I saw Eric's. It hadn't been there when we walked in. But now, just beneath his ear, a thin red line had appeared. Jason saw it too. "Dude, your neck." Eric brushed his fingers against his skin. "What?" He pulled his phone out, using the front camera to check. For a moment, he didn't react. Then he frowned. "What the hell?" He rubbed at it. Mark didn't smudge, didn't smear. It was under his skin. "Probably just some stupid party prank," he muttered. "Whatever." But something in his voice wavered. That's when the women approached us. They were smiling, too wide, too knowing. The tallest one, a woman with dark, glassy eyes, leaned close. "You have to pay an entrance fee." She handed Eric a bottle of something dark. Without hesitation, he drank. The second he swallowed, something changed. The air felt heavier. The walls seemed farther away. Jason and I refused the drink. The woman watched us with something like amusement, tilting her head slightly. "Suit yourselves." Then she walked away, leaving Eric swaying slightly where he stood. He looked different, his pupils blown wide, his breathing slow. Jason grabbed his arm. "Dude, we need to go." Eric smiled at us, but it wasn't his smile. We just got here. As the night dragged on, the party seemed to shift. The rooms stretched too long, the corners too dark. The people barely moved, just slow glances, quiet conversations. Every time I blinked, the layout seemed to change. Doors where there had been none, hallways too long to fit the house. Jason and I stuck together, trying to find an exit, but the more we walked, the less things made sense. And Eric, he wasn't the same. He kept touching his neck, absent-mindedly, his fingers tracing the mark. At some point, Jason whispered, "Look at their hands." I did. The guests had something under their fingernails, something dark, something red. who tried to speak, to say something, anything. But then the music stopped, and every single person turned to face us. Eric's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, looking at the screen. His face paled. "What?" Jason asked. Eric slowly turned the phone toward us. It was a message from an unknown number. "Eric, it's time to come upstairs." He dropped the phone. Jason grabbed his arm. "We're leaving," Eric resisted. Just for a second, then he nodded, as if waking up from a dream. We made our way to the front door. Every step felt wrong, like wading through thick air. The guests didn't move, just watched, their expressions unreadable. Then, as we reached the door, the woman with the glassy eyes whispered, "Next time, come alone." The door opened on its own. We stepped outside, and the house was silent. No music, no voices, no movement inside. Just a massive, empty house. We ran to the car, Jason fumbling with the keys. As we pulled away, I glanced back. The house was dark. No lights, no sound, no people. Just a hollow, empty shell, like no one had ever been there at all. We never talked about it again. Eric never mentioned Vanessa, never spoke her name. But weeks later, he woke up with something new on his skin. A thin black line, stretching from his throat to his chest. It didn't fade, didn't disappear. And late at night, when the air was still, he swore he could hear music. A slow, rhythmic pulse, a heartbeat, calling him back. Some places you don't belong, some invitations you shouldn't accept.